Good evening, and welcome to the Warrant Committee. Today is April 30th, 2025. Karen, can you call the roll, please?
Sure. We have Tom Caldwell, Steve Rines is on Zoom, Lori Connolly, Jay Fundling are here. We have Andrew Coe, Peter Mon, and Julia Maxwell on Zoom. Brian McGuire is here. We have Ron Sia and Judy Steele on Zoom. You have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Karen, and thank you, members of the Warrant Committee. So as you can see by our agenda for this evening, we have one matter on. We are just...
You have to leave that open, so open meeting.
Oh, there we go. And we have one matter on our agenda this evening. It's light trespass. And we're gonna have two speakers presenting for our consideration of the article. We are lucky to have a former member of the select board here, 24 hours, less than 24 hours, Ms. Erin Bradley. And for most of you who don't know, Erin Bradley has been a member of our select board for the past several years. I'd like to thank her right now for her service there. Currently a town meeting member in Precinct 4. And I need to mention this, alumni of the Warrant Committee and ex officio secretary.
That's right.
And Ms. Bradley, if you'd like to come forward, thank you so much. And again, thank you for being here. I'd just like to add, we'll have the chair of the school building committee, Mr. Sean O'Rourke. He'll be here in a few moments and he is going to assist in the presentation and have some additional information to present to us. So that being said, welcome.
Thanks.
Bradley, welcome to the Warrant Committee, back to the Warrant Committee. It's been a while.
It has. It's a great place.
So we're here to talk about the light trespass.
Yep.
And just for members of the committee and any viewers or members of the public, there are two articles concerning the light trespass. One is in our current printed warrant. Yeah. And then there is an additional language that was provided to us.
Sent today, right?
Yes.
Is that what I have?
So just so we're clear, this is a 5-page.
Why are you looking like that?
This is a 5-page article.
Uh-huh.
And then we have the one that's printed in the warrant.
But this one is not, you would have to approve it. So the one that's in the warrant is the one that technically we should be talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you want to make any changes, that would be what you have now.
Yes.
Okay, now I understand, yes.
Okay. So I guess what we'll do is we'll move to the light trespass article in our current warrant.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Judy.
thank you for allowing me. To clear it up from me, the one that is in the article, in the warrant, printed warrant, we have not voted on. And one with the amendments, of course, we are just seeing them now. So when we get to the part of our duties to vote, could you just clarify for me how we will do that? And then in that clarification, explain to me how town meeting will process both of these.
Okay, Judy, we can explain that. So what we're going to do right now, and we were discussing it a moment ago, we are going to discuss the warrant, the article that is printed in the warrant.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then and I'm going to segue right into it. Our speaker has a series of amendments and changes that were submitted to us, and we have a copy of for today, and we're going to discuss some of those. And in addition to that, Sean Bradley, I think, is going to assist us in some of the technical aspects of the article, and he's also present here. So, Judy, if you have any further questions concerning just the procedure, and I know you mentioned something about how town meeting will approach that, we can talk about that when we get to it, if that's okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
Yes.
That being said, just are there any other questions from members of the committee? Hi, Ron.
I do have a question.
Sure,
Because
Brian.
I'm a little confused. Like, this is going to get replaced in, the one that's in the booklet is going to get replaced, right?
Potentially.
Potentially. So,
That's up to you.
yeah, we're just considering,
That's the decision.
yeah, we're just, in what, between the two and whatever things we like or, so we're going to just review the one that's in the printed.
Got it.
And then we'll see the amendment. So this will go, I kind of liken this for members of the committee. It's kind of similar to the planning board articles that we've seen where we have the dual meetings and we make certain recommendations
Yep.
and that type of thing. So that would be if we're looking to change this, those would be recommendations that we would put in the comment.
So it'd be a green sheet.
Yeah, to obviously allow
Okay.
town meeting to weigh in and see what they want to do.
And if I may, Mr. Chair?
Sure,
The
ma'am.
changes came about after the public hearing, but because there was more changes that were made, the old select board did not feel like they had enough time to review them, mainly because the chair at the time was going out of town. So, that's why they weren't included in the warrant, the printing of the warrant.
Okay. Sure, Jay.
This may be a question for later in the evening, but I mean, this is printed in the warrant and distributed to the town so the town can see what we're voting on, what town meeting is voting on. And town meeting can only vote on something, I think the term is within the four corners of what's printed in the warrant. It can't be outside the scope. So maybe it's a question for now or later tonight, but we just want to be sure that whatever we may vote on later is within the scope. I don't know if we've already gotten an opinion from the former moderator or the new moderator or town council as to what would be in scope.
We have not.
Okay.
And I did raise this moments ago with our speaker here tonight, our guest. Okay. And in my conversation with the town administrator, that has not happened as of yet.
Okay.
So, and I know we've had a change in the moderator. So this could be something that our new moderator is going to have to tackle in town council.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else from any member committee? Okay. The floor is yours.
So you guys have already seen the lighting bylaw from last town meeting. This is a little bit more advanced from what was printed last time. We tried to add we heard some of the comments that were made on the town meeting floor, and we incorporated them. So that's what's before you in the warrant right now, is those incorporations. So there's nothing out of I think, what you had seen previously. We did take out some of the parameters around the lumens, but that might be it. Is there questions about that one that people have?
So, Erin, just so if you don't mind, Erin, is that okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
This is what we were really looking at on the floor.
Yes.
Okay. When we
Yes.
had a little confab
Yes, I had to go back and think.
at the grand piano.
I do believe it is close to the same of what we confabbed about there.
Okay.
I think there were some changes, but I don't have them tracked in my document.
Yeah. No, I looked at this. So, okay. This member doesn't have any questions as to this new or as to the printed article. Does any member online?
Julia has her hand up.
Julia Maxwell.
Thank you. Yeah. So sorry, you're saying about the version in the warrant or the version we received today?
The version in the warrant.
Oh, okay. No questions on that. Thank you.
Hey, Brian.
The one that was printed today, this is going to be, I'm just questioning, that is a lot more complete, right? So I would think we my thought would be, the same questions I have for that one, I'd have for this.
Okay.
Some of them. So I'm going to wait.
Okay. Well, I don't think, I'm getting the feeling that no one has any questions as to the matter in the printed warrant. Okay, there's no question.
I do.
Sure.
I keep missing the raised hand. I apologize, Mr. Chair and committee members. May I?
You may.
Thank you. Ms. Bradley, could you explain how the printed warrant as it is now will be enforced?
When you say enforced, you mean who will be responsible for doing the review? So that would be it says, I believe what it says is the select board or their designee.
Okay, may I continue then, Ms. Bradley, on this line of questioning? I'll just make up a scenario. My floodlights annoy. You and I live next to each other, and my floodlights annoy your peaceful enjoyment of your property. And that could happen. And so you, my neighbor, could go to the select board and say, my neighbor's floodlights are diminishing my peaceful enjoyment of my property. Now, could you explain to me how the select board would determine that my floodlight, and this is just an example, my floodlights are in fact diminishing that peaceful enjoyment of your property? How would they determine that?
So there's they probably personally would not be determining that. They would send the building inspector out to look at it, or another member that they deem fit. You would use a light meter, and it's actually $25 on Amazon. You can buy one, and you go and you take a reading of what the light output is. You would also look at the direction of it. So is the floodlight, is it angled in such a way where it's pointing down? Is it on a timer? All of those factors would go into it. And I think that this would be clarified in the one that you received today with some of those changes, because this did come up at the public hearing as well. So none of the changes from the public hearing made it into this warrant. Does that make sense? Okay.
It does.
Okay.
And if I could just keep on a roll here, same subject. What qualifications to determine this? What type of training will be necessary to make an accurate determination of trespass?
So there's no training. It's just a basic list of items that the building inspector, who is trained in inspecting buildings, I would assume, or something like that, would go and see. So if your floodlight, let's say, Judy, was on a timer, then that wouldn't constitute light trespass, because you'd be within the parameters of the new things that we're saying. If your floodlight was just at an angle that was pitched so that it was going directly into your neighbor's home, then you would just need to change the angle of it so it was angled down a little bit more. These are not things that are college degree needed. I think that they're just more common sense and experience from working as a building inspector.
I think what I'm looking for, how will we rule out a subjective decisions and make sure they're purely objective? In other words, my opinion may be that it's not light. In other words, how objective is this going to be in the assessment of the trespass?
Well, it will be up to the building inspector or whomever the select board designates. And there are specific things that are in the new one is about, what that looks like and how you determine it. Because that was part of what was brought up, is that, there's appropriate lumen levels and this is not something new. This is something that's happening across the state. I think it's New Salem, or I can't even think of what town it was.
New Marlboro.
Well, New Marlboro, yep. But there was another one too that I took some of the language from.
Buckland. I have a list of 63 communities in the
Amazing.
Commonwealth that have similar natured of light trespass, dark skies, etc., all doing with outdoor lighting. Let's leave it there. And what was interesting to me, Ms. Bradley, was that 99% of all the municipalities that had, a lighting bylaw went through zoning, not general bylaw. And so New Marlborough and Buckland, up by Shelburne Falls, in case you were wondering where it was, have general bylaws. I called both towns. Both towns told me, I basically thought perhaps I, just came in from another planet. I go, look, well, I need to know how you process complaints. And they go, we don't have complaints. I go, excuse me? And I was informed by an employee who was on board for 6 years, and we don't have complaints. So I let that roam around in my head, Miss Bradley, and I thought to myself, well, that's why they can sort of get away, if you will, and that's probably not the right phrase I'm looking for, with a general bylaw. It's not a town as big as ours. It's not as complex as ours. And so a general bylaw suited their towns. So I guess I'm moving towards a question, which is how, considering that the majority of these towns in our Commonwealth use zoning bylaws rather than general bylaws, can you perhaps weigh in on why you chose a general bylaw instead of going through zoning?
Absolutely, because the Attorney General's office had approved it for those other towns. So we knew that it was something that could happen, and I was on the select board.
Correct. But using my analysis of comparable municipalities, I still wonder why we didn't fall more in line with towns that are comparable to ours going through the zoning.
I don't know how I can answer that any differently for you, Judy. I was on the select board. And so the select board and the planning board can both put forward zoning bylaws. We're the only bodies in the town that can. So we had found this and we knew that the Attorney General's office had signed off on it. So I was on the select board, and that's, I wish I had a better answer for you, but that's honestly why we did it there.
That's fair.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Judy, for those questions. Ron?
Hi, thanks. I recall we had questions about the levels of lumens.
So that's not in there anymore.
Okay. I'm looking at the one from this morning.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about. There we go. So,
Confused, but
I read the wrong one. I'm going to say one. Okay, we had what's printed in the warrant, and we have a whole bunch of brand new one that was amendments that was sent out to you today.
Well, the warrant has lumens too.
does it?
Yeah.
That was my question.
Oh, sorry. Again, I'm not looking at that. So the one that was sent out earlier today does not have that in there anymore.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the committee right now. Are there any more questions about the article that was printed in the warrant that we all got in the mail?
Right.
I guess I'd like to reserve the right to, if we go to this and then go back to that.
Jay, you can go back.
Okay.
But I'm just asking any specific questions to what is printed in the article. And I'm sorry, I'm not.
I have a question that applies to both, I think. And I apologize, you might have answered a few minutes ago, but I was reading and you were talking, so I apologize if it's repetitive. But in both of them, they say, you will consider the following conditions to determine the outcome of the light trespass complaint, and then you list several things. So are those subjective things that the select board will keep in mind? Are they hard and fast rules? Are they something in between?
Can you tell me what section that's in, Jay?
It's section enforcement.
Enforcement, okay.
Either
No, I'm going
Okay.
to it now. I just needed to.
Like both of them have, 1, light shining directly into window, 2, excessive glare. So those
Can I
sound,
bring Sean up to the table? Is that okay?
Oh, yeah. Sean O'Rourke, chair of the school building committee. Mr. O'Rourke is not a stranger to the Warrant Committee. Spent a lot of time together over the past couple of years. Mr. O'Rourke, thanks for coming.
No problem. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sean O'Rourke, town meeting member, precinct 8, chair of the school building committee. But tonight I'm before you. So my day job, I'm the director of electrical engineering for WSP. As part of a lot of the work we do, lighting is a component of it. So watching your meetings, as I do sometimes, I know you guys are asking for like some type of expert. I'm not an expert, but I work with a lot of them, and through osmosis, I've gained a lot of understanding of it. What I want to do is just share, walk through like almost some of the basics, because you guys are throwing around terminology, lumens, stuff like this. I want to put it in context for you, so when we're talking about some of this stuff, it will give you kind of a better understanding of it. If that may I share my screen?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Sean, so,
Make sure I'm close to the mic too.
okay, so
Sorry.
what we're going to do is we're just going to focus on the aspect that Sean's going to present on right now, the lumens. And there was something in the old one. We're going to compare that to the new one. Is that fair?
Yeah, so sharing is not turned on.
Your panels.
Never mind.
Yeah, this one.
oh,
So it does talk.
making pictures.
Yeah. I know Jay likes presentations, so. But
I'm jealous.
Yeah, no, but honestly, with some of this stuff, graphics is important to understand. So the term that you hear a lot, and I haven't seen the updated warrant article, so I'm just going off what was printed in the warrant. But again, it's just analogous for everything. So when you talk about lumens is basically the intensity of the light source where it's at. You cannot measure lumens. That's one of my main points I want to talk about today. So when you're talking about measurements, so section B where it says any lumen levels in question shall be measured, you can't measure lumens. So what happens is light goes over, it falls onto a surface. When it falls onto a surface, that's called illuminance. That's what you're measuring with this light meter that Ms. Bradley was talking about. Your actual vision is luminance. It's the reflected light that you see off of there. That's where all the wavelengths and everything come in. Won't go too much into vision. So what's a foot candle? So what they did is they took a candle, which is considered 1 lumen, took a rectangular surface 1 square foot, a foot away, and how much light falls on that is considered 1 foot candle. All right. A lux, which is another unit of measurement, same as a foot candle, just off by essentially a factor of 10.76, is the same candle 1 meter away, but over a 1 meter square area. So if you had a light meter, this gets important because when you set these parameters, if you're setting it in foot candles or lux, it's important because they're off by a factor of 10 when you're measuring. So if you were to measure 247 lux, you have to understand that's 22.94 foot candles. So again, just some context as you're talking about this. The other one that comes up too is, so light falls off at the square of the distance, right? So if you have an 800 lumen lamp a foot away, it's 800 foot candles. You move that same source 4 feet away, it drops 50 foot candles, or 16, 800 divided by 16. If you move it 8 feet away, it drops 12.5 foot candles, and 10 feet away, it drops 10 times more, or 100 times more. So I just bring this up because where the article is written as measuring lumens, you can look at the lumens, but how far away you are when you're talking about property lines and stuff like that, that's where the measurement portion of this comes in. So Judy's point of the subjective of this goes away when you do the measurements. Now, I know Erin likes to buy light meters
That are cheap.
No, do not. So, this is the light meter we use at our office. The reason I bring this up is because you're going to be dealing possibly in fractional foot candles because we're doing light trespass at low levels. You want something that's accurate, and you want.
We don't have a budget for that.
It's 10% off.
But
We need the Yugo version.
so we've done studies using our meter against like other ones, even apps on your phone that have.
Yeah, I have it on my.
There's a big difference between like a very high end light meter and some of the lower end ones, if you want to call it that. So my only thing is, if this gets enforced, the town should invest in one of these and make sure it's calibrated, because this is the other part you have to do is you're doing measurements. The key thing here is like, where do you do those measurements, right? So you're gonna, I didn't see anything in there, but I'm assuming we're gonna want it at the property boundaries. And I haven't seen the updated ones. So
No, it's not in there.
Yep. And this kind of goes into what was being talked about before of, on the left, you have what's, essentially considered light trespass, light going across the property line into another neighbor's house. So for that one, if you went over and measured at the property line or on the other property, depending on how it's written, you would look at that measured value and say, yes, it's above or below. The one on the right, what they do there is like Ms. Bradley was talking about, is direct the light more downward so it doesn't shine into your neighbor's property, and therefore, hope ideally at the edge of your property line it cuts off. The other one that you'll hear a lot about is glare, right? So glare, think of it as the one on the left, that's the most glary. You see the light source, it's like looking into the sun. And then there's different portions of it. And essentially what they're doing is they're pulling the light source that's on the left up into the fixture. So the second one on the right is what they call a fully shielded fixture, which pushes all the light down. You'll hear dark sky and light trespass. They're two opposite things. Light trespass is what we're just showing going across property boundaries. Sky glow or light pollution is all that uplight. And there's a rating for light fixtures, and I'm trying not to go too much into a lot of stuff, but it's called bug rating. Backlight, uplight, glare. It's a 3-digit code for every fixture that goes out. It's a numerical value for each one. So for a one with a 0 in the middle for uplight has 0 uplight to it. Glare would have a different number, and backlight would have a different number. So the 3 numbers there correspond to like a simple rating to it. The other one that comes in is this kind of ties into Judy's point, which was good. About perception. So, like I said, your eye is what sees the light. Not everybody sees light the same way. That's where the measurement comes in, really important. So with your eyes, the other thing that happens over time, your lens yellows. So the lens portion of your eye goes from a clear to a yellow to a brown. The one on the middle row to the far right is a 60-year-old lens. So when people look at it, everybody sees light differently. And then, when you're looking at different times, low light levels or high light levels, you're in different vision ranges, whether it's scotopic, photopic, or mesopic vision. It's, again, not trying to be too nerdy on it. Like Judy, what I tried to do is look at what I think would be most comparable, town that would have some of this stuff. So in their bylaw in Wellesley, they basically list out what they have there, what's acceptable types of fixtures. So the ones on the left are the glary ones. You can see the light source. The ones on the right are the acceptable ones where the light source is, pulled up into the fixture, the housing of the fixture, to cut all that off and push the light all down. When they were looking at this, I think the key thing, and again, I haven't seen the updated one, is what's that value that you want to aim for light trespass that follows over. And sorry, it's hard to navigate the mouse. Right here, over a little, I got the zoom blocking me, sorry. Right here, it's 0.5 foot candles at the boundary or 5 lux. Again, that factor of 10. So depending on how you set it or how you measure it, it's important to know that. So I don't know in your updated one if there's anything in there for it, but essentially there should be. If you look at the dark sky org website, they basically say 0.1 foot candles is what they want. That's really tight. And that will cause a lot of problems because people will just be calling all the time. Half a foot candle, from scouring the link at the bottom that shows all the other mass sites that are there, is probably appropriate for what I think for Milton that's there. So again, it just basically wanted to walk through that just to give some context to everybody. So as you're discussing this, there's some technical aspects, and happy if there are questions or if stuff's coming up and you have a question about it, I can jump back up, whatever you need.
Lori.
Can you send that to us?
Yep.
So like I can go back to those screens while we're talking about it?
Definitely.
I have a question.
Yep.
That's Andrew. Andrew.
Yeah, and this is, the last slide is helpful as a data point, but I'm still confused because even the latest draft that we see, it doesn't reference anything about measuring at property boundaries, and all the, as best I can tell, it's all lumens, which would be the bulb rating. So I think what you've mentioned makes a lot more sense than just having someone literally go look at the bulb to measure the actual, or even get the actual rating of the bulb itself. Because, as you mentioned, taking a measurement wouldn't give you what's being stated and what's in the language of even the latest draft of the bylaw. So I'm still a little confused as to if this is the appropriate metric, why we would even discuss the latest draft.
Mr. Chair, if I can.
Sure, absolutely.
Sean and I weren't able to get together prior to actually right now. And that's because of his travel schedule. That's because of my school schedule. We weren't able to connect for the public hearing, for any of that stuff. It's been really busy. So if it's okay with, if this is something you would like, I completely agree with him that that's the way we should be measuring it. And he briefly had a text message that said, hey, your measurements, you got to do this different. I think he's absolutely right, and it should be in there that way. I just have not had the opportunity to talk to him.
No. Yeah. So.
Well, Sean, thank you very much.
Yep.
And this is extremely helpful. Sean, are you able to speak to any level to Andrew's concern?
No, for me, like if this came up at town meeting, if I was still I've been traveling a lot recently. If I wasn't able to kind of come here tonight and talk about this, I was going to offer a friendly amendment on the floor.
Oh, okay, so can you explain like what you would do given your knowledge and everything? Like if you were on the town, that's the best way to explain it.
Yeah, essentially I've been traveling for work a lot the past couple of weeks. So during the public meeting, even during last town meeting where this came up on the floor, I was actually in Austin, so I wasn't available. Mm-hmm. So that's why I couldn't get to anything. And when I talked to Miss Bradley, she said she was going to be here tonight. I said, perfect, I'm in town. Let me see what I can do. What I would offer is, amending. I haven't seen the latest one that you guys have today. But again, if this is not in any of that language that's there, I think it's just under the enforcement section. We would just need to add a section that mimics or looks something similar to what one of the other towns have. Darksky.org, mm-hmm. right, has a template that they just give you this, you can pre-fill out for part of this. So part of the language that we're looking for is already covered in some of the templates that are there. So I don't see it being a fully kick it back, mm-hmm. put it to another town meeting or something like that. I just see it as a simple amendment that we add in.
But if you were to add it in tonight, you could add it in as part of your green sheet, if you choose to change it at all.
There are pretty significant changes in the language that would have to happen because as phrased, it simply tells you what the lumens of different light fixtures can be. Mm-hmm. This is now saying at the boundary levels, we are going to measure based on the lux levels at the boundary. And this is, one, I think there are material changes. Two, I don't see the urgency in this that we would green sheet this. And finally, going back to sort of Judy's point, as best, and somebody please help me out, what the difference would be in a general bylaw versus a zoning bylaw, but the biggest difference I'm aware of is the threshold for approval. And so this is something that affects everybody in the town. And I think the town should have a vote in terms of whether they want, whether the town wants this, since it'll affect every member of the town. So the threshold for zoning bylaw is 2/3 vote, correct?
Yes. Andrew.
And what's the threshold for a general?
It's just a majority vote, Andrew.
A simple majority. And is there any other functional differences in?
In the planning board, we can speak to that. It's usually a longer process with a couple of public hearings that are advertised. And just the fact that it's a planning board and, they have specialized knowledge. The assistants usually have a planner with them. So, that's really the differences between the general and the planning, including the 2/3 vote.
There was a public hearing on this that was advertised in the newspaper.
Okay.
And we didn't have any opposition that came to that.
And I noted that in the emails. Andrew, do you have any follow-ups or any further comments just as?
No, that's pretty much it. Pretty much it. I would feel less comfortable about green sheeting it. People probably didn't pay attention to it and will realize that there are some material impacts to some residents because nobody's grandfathered in. There's no.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew, for your comments. So, Sean, do you have more information that you'd like to? So that was it. Does anybody have a question as just for Sean? Go Brian, then Ron.
Just another. So that's three things you mentioned was you need a calibrated piece of equipment.
Yep.
Should be at the property line. We should have a lumen change in language. One other thing I did look it up too. Some stuff on lumens. Time of day matters too that they measure.
Obviously, because the sun's out.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's just a thing that probably
I
should be put in here.
All this is basically assumed to be at night, right? So the other part that comes up too is you doing the measurements is other surrounding lights. So it might not just be that one light that's on there. So essentially you have to do a differential. And part of this is going to be a work in progress for anybody doing it, right? So if you go out, you measure a light level at a property boundary. If it's above, you shut the light off, right? The one that's in question, you take another measurement, it still might be above because you have a street light contributing to that measurement that's there too. So trying to work out every one of those issues all the way through in language and text, you'll never be able to do it. And essentially it's going to be an iterative process as it goes along of how the best way to implement it.
Should that not go in the, well, I wouldn't know if I'd ask you, but that should go in the language though, right?
There's no way to there's way too many variables to take in that you just couldn't summarize it in a text because you'd have to do every possible scenario for it all the way through. That's where the measurement, the value that gets there just by stating what that value is would basically give you a hard boundary for what that value should be.
So I'm a little confused.
Sure.
So it's nighttime. You're at a property line. You have your calibrated lumen measurer, whatever it's called, and somebody's got a light shining from their house, a floodlight or something.
Sure.
You pointed at that to see what the lumens are, right?
Yeah. So to take the measurement, what you would do is place the device horizontally on the ground at the property line. You would measure it without casting shadows on it because that would affect the dome. So I'll go back just. So for this device, this dome that you see here is what does the measurements. So if you held it vertically, you would get a vertical calculation grid. What you want to do is hold it horizontally there, and then whatever measured horizontally, that's how the standards are written for it. So you would basically place it on the property line, make sure it's not shaded or anything like that, and even have the homeowner say this is what they think is the worst case. Hit the one button, it locks it in, it measures it right there, and there's your value.
And so if one of my other questions, I have a few questions, but like, if they dispute it and say there's a street light behind you, and they say that might be contributing to the lumens, which it might.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And they can dispute that. It's not so hard and fast that there's a light issue.
It would be the differential between the two. So you would shut the light in question that's on your property off, look at what that value is, and look at the differential between it.
Okay.
And for example, if you shut the light that's on your property off and the light level drops below what the threshold is, and then you're contributing a certain amount above that, it would be that 0.5 foot candles. So if you're contributing more than 0.5 foot candles across that property boundary, then you'd be in violation.
Okay. Yeah, I have other questions, but it's not, that's.
Well, you know
detail, so I'll go to.
Yeah, Ron, and then Judy, you have your hand raised. I recognize you, but Ron, go, please.
My first question was the same, like if there's contributing light, but so you can just subtract it. So that sounds like, is that standard?
Correct.
I said, so if someone needs to know how to do this, you can't just go any old employee or town representative to go off and.
Yeah, it truly isn't that hard. Like I said, it'll take some time to.
We've done it once.
It doesn't take that long. You know what I mean? Like I said, you hold it, click it, and it locks in, right? And it basically it latches that value for the screen that you see there. And then whether it's in lux or foot candles, you would just record what that value is. And then if somebody questions that there's additional light contributing into it, Ron, again, you would go to the house, shut off the light or lights in question, take the other measurement, and look at the delta between the two. If it's half a foot candle more, if that's the value that's chosen, that would tell you if they're contributing more than half a foot candle.
Yep. And I guess, so the select board can determine, because if the property owner says, I have my own light reading and I'm below 0.5, the select board can say, we either go with the property owner's argument or the investigator. They determine that.
That's, again, when you're measuring down to like half a foot candle in there, you want a device that's very accurate for it. And like a phone one, that's why I wanted to point it out tonight, because I've heard discussions of just go on Amazon, buy one and bring it over. You know, if you're going to do this and enforce it and have, you know, certain penalties associated with it, you want it to be accurate.
Yep. The other question I had, maybe for Ms. Bradley. So I think it makes sense to measure at the property line. And I can see situations where you have adjacent neighbors. That's pretty clear who would be the aggrieved party. But if you're talking about a property that's bordering public land, let's say, I would think it would still be that property line, because the public would have access to the adjacent properties.
So any land that's public land is either owned by the town, you know, it's overseen by the park department, or it's overseen by DCR. So it all depends on, you know, who would own that. So if you're talking about something like Houghton's Pond, that would be something that the select board would then file a trespass on whoever is doing it, because they own the land.
Okay, because it doesn't specify who can bring a complaint. It just says
Anybody.
right. So a citizen can just say, hanging on Houghton's Pond at night, and you know, he's interrupting with my enjoyment of the nighttime sky.
Well, kind of, except in the definition, it says that it's actually coming into another person's windows or something like that. Like there's all other factors that go into it. So it's not just, I happen to be at Houghton's Pond and there's a light there. It would have to actually be harming either, you know, the environment specifically, like it was on 24/7, or, you know, all those other factors that you would take into consideration.
Okay.
Thank you, Ron. Judy, and then Julia.
And my question goes to Sean, please. In your experience as an electric engineer, I do know where I'm going with this. I'm just, how complex is this to solve on a residential basis of abutting properties, abutting to public land properties? And how accurate can the assessments really be? I don't know if you could give me an example or an explanation.
Yes. So, for us, my work isn't really residential, but we do large scale public infrastructure that abuts residential. So partially what we have to do initially is do calculations based on, the photometrics for luminaires that we're installing, and then go out and actually confirm that in the field. So, we do that to confirm like what we're showing in calcs or actually what goes in outside. From a true residential dispute resolution, we haven't had one. And so from a neighbor to a neighbor thing, I can't speak to that. What I can say, again, on that subjective end, you may see a light that's two, 3 houses away and assume, that's a problem to you. But the reality is it's only because you're seeing it. It's not contributing light onto your property. So that's where that subjective end of it comes in, that, again, you have to go back as your initial point. You need a measured value that you can hold somebody to say it's not contributing to light onto your property, so therefore it's not a light trespass issue.
So if I may ask, after hearing your explanation, for in our town situation, because this is where the bylaw is pertaining to, if you and I are 4 properties away from each other, and I think you have excessive lighting, I would not be eligible to file a complaint under this scenario, or would I just need to be in a butter? Because obviously you can't measure boundaries because there's 4 houses in between us. Is my understanding of that correct, perhaps?
Yeah, Judy, to the theoretical that you just posed, right? As I mentioned before, say you lodged a complaint for house 4 houses over, if somebody were to come out to respond to that, again, you would take an initial measurement to get a baseline, shut the lights off, retake that measurement, look at the differential between the two, see if it's greater than half a foot candle, and most likely that far away it's not. And that would kind of close the issue at that point. And again, that's why you go back to a measured and verified number that's there that you can measure.
In reading the bylaw that's being proposed, would you, in your professional experience, think that we've covered all the bases for that type of measuring where it's fully understood we can't go around town complaining about lights that really don't affect us?
Yeah, I think, I think people, it will be an educational process for people as they, submit complaints and then get, similar to how this presentation is going tonight for everyone here. Lighting can be a little complex. It's very subjective. So as I said, people see light differently than other people, right? So what may be perceived by you as obtrusive, other people will fine with it. We haven't talked about colors, color temperature or anything like that. We're not getting into that. Okay. But I think getting something on the books is important as a starting point. And then, it can be refined as it's going along. There's as Brian mentioned earlier, we're not going to be able to cover everything under the text, but as things come up, again, with any type of bylaw or anything, it's iterative. Things will come up, we adjust it, and we can pass it at town meeting, as long as there's support for it.
So I'll try and give others a chance here. So what I think I just heard from you is, as this evolves, any bylaw can be changed. Have an amendment for a change. But as this evolves, more specific language can be added to this bylaw.
Yeah,
So why can't we do it in the beginning then?
So I'm going to jump.
Why can't we just start there with more inclusive specifics? to help people along.
So as Sean was saying, we don't know, first of all, I don't think there's going to be a run on the select board of a line of people coming out the door. I honestly don't. And maybe that's just me being naive, but I've seen a lot of bylaws go into effect. We used to write laws. There was never a run on anything when it came out, right? People are just very nervous about it because it's new and it's different. But as I was just saying to Sean, if there are big changes, we actually wouldn't need to go back into the bylaw specifically. We could just have regulations that whoever was doing it would have to follow, right? So the building inspector has a whole bunch of stuff that they have to follow that's not in any bylaw, right? It's just the rules of how things work. And so that's an easier way that we can adjust this. If there is a run on the town of Milton of everybody complaining about their neighbors, I would hope there wouldn't be. But if there is, that's one way that you can deal with it.
Well, we're looking right now, if I may, at a slide that Sean has provided from the town of Wellesley. And there's examples. There's not only examples of lighting that's better serves the light trespass argument, it has lots of explanations. So kind of back to my original question is, would we want to have more explanations in our bylaw?
But I'll take so the legal end of the town stuff I give to Miss Bradley. I'll take the nerd stuff for the lighting.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think, again, as a starting point for, what we're trying to get on the books for the town, there are limits to lumen output for specific lamps or fixtures or luminaires, as they're called, that are there. And, for a starting point, I think that's good. Again, for what's presented or what's in the latest one here, it basically outlines what those luminaires are, what the limits on those are. I think the only thing we're trying to add here is the measurement portion value that's on there, which is honestly, it doesn't affect any of the other texts that's there. It's just a complete add for under the enforcement for what that value should be when you measure it.
Thank you. I appreciate the clarifications. I really do. Thank you.
Yeah, anytime.
Thank you, Judy. Julia, thank you.
Hi, thanks. I'm sorry if I missed this earlier, but is this measurement when someone's out, on the property doing measurement, is this like a one and done kind of measurement, or is this like you do 3 measurements and you take the average?
Good question.
Yeah, very good.
So I would say it would be a singular measurement. I would leave it to the homeowner where they think it would be worst. If you wanted to do multiple measurements and take an average, you could do that too. But so what you're getting into in the lighting end, they talk about when they take light measurements, they do a grid. So there's typically, if we're doing a parking garage or a parking lot, we'll go out and put a 5 foot by 5 foot grid, take measurements at each point, average them, and you say over that grid, the average foot candle value is this. And then within all those points you take, there's a maximum and a minimum. I don't think you're trying to get that, to that level here. I think if you're looking along the line, if the homeowner doesn't like the first one, go to the next one, maybe call it 3, 4 at a max. It's not gonna, it takes literally seconds to take a measurement. And I think very quickly you're going to see, whether it's a problem or whether it's not. For example, if you take a measurement and there's really no other light contributing around and you're at 2 foot candles, it's pretty sure that, you're not going to need to take more measurements.
I'm just wondering if it would be helpful for a, future inspector or dispute to have that methodology outlined so that everyone knows it's being done, you know, the same way at every location, and that I just worry if you're doing a one and done measurement and then, you know, that person's going to complain that the machine was faulty or whatever. So would it just be easier to say, this is the procedure, you do 3 measurements, take the average, whatever that procedure is, and that's how it'll be done for everyone, to sort of eliminate that, like, oh, I got an unfair shake with a bad reading, my one bad reading. Just a thought.
Yep.
Is there a standard, like some defined standard from some technicians?
Not really. Like I said, if it's like a grid reading where you're like laying out a large site or something like that, you can do it. For example, Fenway Park, I know they do a grid there every so often and take like level readings to check it. But for a property line or something like that, again, it would kind of be on the homeowner. Most likely, there's going to be a light in question or some source of light in question. They're going to say it's affecting me here, and almost they're going to have to draw a straight line and just go to that property boundary and take a measurement.
Okay.
You're talking about measuring at the property boundary. Can you go back a couple slides to where you're shining in the neighbor's house?
Yep. One more.
Maybe one more. Yeah. So if I'm measuring the property, I thought that was the whole point of this picture. If I'm measuring at the left property boundary, the right property boundary, I'm going to get the same measurement. And yet one of those is bothering the neighbor and one isn't. So I'm confused. So if you're measuring the property boundary.
Yeah, I mean, from looking at this picture, the amount of light on the line on the right, the top of that red line is less than what you see on the left.
Oh, okay, but
Yeah.
the point is, if it's shining at the ground and you're measuring at the ground, that doesn't tell you if it's bothering the neighbor's bedroom window.
Well, that gets into the glare component, right?
Okay.
So that's where, again, to measure on a vertical surface somewhere, there's no stated values for any of that stuff that's there. So you have to go off something that you can measure to look at that. For a spot. The other part where this gets into is fully shielded. So the fixture on the right points down.
Mm-hmm.
So how that's enforced, I don't know.
And I guess my other question is, I feel like we're talking around. Can you show us what your proposed language would be? Like we've got the language this morning or this afternoon or whenever it was, and it says things like landscape lighting, 250 lumens and 2,000 lumens. What would your proposed language be? Are you proposing striking that? Or I thought a minute ago you might be saying, leave that in, but also add, but it's okay unless the foot candles is.
Yeah, it essentially be section 5 that talks about measurement. That's there, measuring lumen levels. Again, like I said, you can't measure a lumen level, it's a rating.
Okay.
So most likely section 5 would get amended. So if I was doing this as a friendly amendment on the floor,
I'm looking at it right now, I can do it.
Yeah.
So you leave section 4 as is.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
and that's what I was saying is this
That
is
helps.
basically just an add or replacement to section 5, which deals with variance.
Okay.
Sorry about that. So the true language of what it is, I haven't crafted that yet or looked at it, but it's pretty similar. Again, looking at the dark sky standards, they have standard templates for the languages there, and you just fill in the values that you want to see.
So the one that's in the warrant now has a number of different landscape lights are 300 lumens or less, wall lights 600 lumens or less,
Right.
string lights. So that's not what's in the
No.
new one.
No,
And we don't want it in the new one.
I would like it not to be in.
And why?
Why?
And why? And my second part of that question is why are, like, they're different in ways that seem not necessarily intuitive to me.
Yep.
In the measurement.
Yep. So one of the things that one of the members of the select board brought up was talk about how are people supposed to know what these specific things are. And so when I went back and tried to take a crack at fixing that, I tried to explain a little bit more about specific outdoor lighting. So that's what you see in the new language. So the outdoor accent lighting, the facade lighting, landscape lighting. Holiday lighting was a big thing that came up with one of the select board members, so I really wanted to make sure that we put something in there about that, so folks don't think that this is aimed at holiday lighting. And then again, flags are separate because they go under federal guidelines. for lighting, and it's very specific that they have to be lit in a certain way. So I want to make sure that that was in there so that people weren't filing frivolous claims,
Yep.
is what a lot of this new language is about, is to stop the frivolous claims. There's another section in here that says you can only file one claim on a house. Like you can't file multiple claims once it's been fixed because everybody's worried about the frivolousness of this. And so the new language is really trying to limit the possible impact of that. The first draft of that language, which is in the warrant, which is all those lumens, that was just taken from the Dark Sky website. And so I felt like they needed to have just a little bit more fleshing out, and that, you know, I didn't want people to think that they couldn't have lights on their stairs. And, you know, it just got into this whole world of everybody being worried. So that's why I would like them removed.
And
Of course.
and Sean, so are 300 lumens versus 600 lumens, which is a higher number?
600.
600.
I'm just making sure.
Yep, no, that's fine.
And path lights, so you can have a higher amount of lumens on a path than the steps. Well, I mean, you didn't write that, so.
Are you on the new one or the old
No,
one?
I kind of was like looking at the one that's in the warrant because I like step lights, I feel like people
Should be
would.
higher?
Yeah.
They're probably because there's more will be more lights in the path than there will be on the stairs. So the stairs are very specific in where they're pointing, whereas the path lights, and that's.
Yeah, but that makes sense.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
But again, I didn't want people freaking out about paths and stairs, so that's why.
And just back to Jay's point about the light shining at the neighbor and stuff, when I was reading the new one, that again, didn't have a copy of, this is part of this section 4A, outdoor accent lighting. It basically talks that the light has to be aimed downwards. So if it's one of the spotlights that's on the side of the house aimed at the neighbor, they would have to tilt it downward to be in compliance. So,
And that's-
so for that image that we were looking at here, it's on the left, basically aimed vertically, aimed at them.
Okay.
Most times for some of these lights, if we go to the end. So typically what you see is, you know, ones that look like this that are over there, or other ones that are on a trunnion that can be adjusted. They just have to aim them down.
Jay, I was going to ask you before you asked, is it a follow-up to your previous question? Because I was wanting you to articulate your understanding of Sean's, your question, just for the committee.
Like, I'm still confused how it all fits together into making a judgment. Because, like, enforcement number 4, where enforcement says, these are all the things that the select board should consider. But they don't, I'm not sure if they're hard and fast rules or not. And then number 4 talks about outdoor lights, but number 5 talks about lumens, you know, measuring, we'll change it from lumens to foot candles, I guess, measured at the property line. So is it all subjective and these are guidelines? Is it that if you pass on any one of them, then you're not in violation? Like if my lumens are small enough, I'm not in violation no matter what? Or if my foot candles are small enough, I'm not in violation? Or is it just subjective? I'll stop talking now.
I don't think it's subjective. I think if you get a complaint and there's a specific light, you can, first of all, go out there and just look at the light and see if it's pointed in the right direction, right? So if it's that simple as, hey, can you just point it down a little bit more so it's not shining in that baby's bedroom? That is an easy fix, right? But I think when you're looking at the foot candle loop, like the measurement, I think that would be the guiding factor. You know, if it's not something that's as simple as, can you just point this down a little bit? Which also, we're all neighbors. Like, I would hope if something's shining in my baby's window that you would go to your neighbor and be like, hey, can you just point that down a little bit? I mean, this is not meant to entrap everybody in their outdoor lighting. This is meant to serve a purpose as we continue to grow as a town. And we are looking at very densely possible growth in certain areas of our town. And so this is a way that we can also help protect our neighbors that are currently there. So this is not intended to be a gotcha bylaw. This is not intended for any of that stuff. This is just to start the ball rolling on how to do things. You know, when a building inspector goes out and looks at something, yes, there's a set of rules, but that's subjective, right? He or she has an object. They can look at things and be like, okay, you know, they know what they're doing. If you were to send me out there to look at lights, I'd bring my little phone app and I would be like, I don't know what I'm doing here. So it's not for me it's not for me, but the people that know how to do this and work in this industry, as Sean says, it's pretty simple. Does that help, Jay?
It helps.
Kind of.
It helps. I did have
Yeah, you did, please.
a different question. So if we look at sort of the second from the bottom row of lights, what I would call like porch lights, yeah. Those are, I don't know what the difference between acceptable and unacceptable, but those are the kind of porch lights that are in front of my house, in front of the houses on every house on my street. And if I look at the new wording, enforcement for, I don't know if that's facade lighting or not.
Yeah, it would be, yes.
Okay, so then it says facade lighting shall be installed and oriented so light output points directly toward the feature to be illuminated. Everybody on my block has one of those lights and it's just shining out. So that's bad?
No, that's what's supposed to be illuminated.
But
Because it shines over
what's
the
the
property line.
difference between this and this?
So, yeah.
Well, that's a different question.
Well, but isn't that kind of the whole issue of
Yeah, so
your
this one
porch
you're
light?
seeing here, so the lamp, this is right here. Whereas on this one, the lamp is tucked up inside. This is like a reflector that would reflect the light. So I apologize, the graphic is, I just put it, I didn't know we were gonna dive this deep into some of it.
Seriously.
Please.
Or committee.
It's only 8 o'clock. I mean,
It's only 8 o'clock.
Get out.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Seriously?
we have
Seriously.
No, but essentially the difference between the two of them is one where the glass with the lamp and again, these aren't in our bylaws, so it's not saying that
Right.
you can't have them, right? But what it is it has the lamp exposed, so you see it's glary a little bit. The other one has a lamp pulled up where all the light's reflected. So for example, if you look at the lights up here, they have baffles on them to kind of keep you from seeing the direct source.
Right.
The whole idea of lighting, some of the lighting people get weird when they get into some of this stuff. They want to replicate daylighting, right? So you don't look at the sun to see it because the sun's the source. You just know it's bright around you.
Yeah.
Same in this room. We're looking around. You don't look up at the light.
Right.
So the whole idea of some of their lighting is to get the source out of view and then have all reflected light so it's easier on your eyes.
But so, go ahead, Joe. Go ahead.
Yeah, and
This was your
that's
question.
theory. That's not what we're trying to enforce.
I just want to go back to my porch light. Does my porch light point directly toward the feature to be illuminated? It points every direction.
Of your porch.
Of my porch and I guess my sidewalk. So
Right, but
that
is your
means
porch, is that porch light going into your neighbor's yard and is it a nuisance, right?
No and no,
So
but I
that
worry
would
that it's
be-
not pointed directly toward the feature to be illuminated.
Right, but that's part of, if you go up, it
Okay.
says lights directly shining into another's window, excessive glare. Like, these are all factors to consider. It's
These are all
not just, I'm looking at number 4A.
Okay.
And I'm only doing 4A. Most of us have our porch lights on and we turn them off when we go to bed, which I'm assuming for folks,
You're very diligent.
I am diligent because I like
The
to
price of
save.
electricity.
Seriously.
Very fair.
And for me, I'm up until 2 a.m. sometimes, so it's up on until 2 a.m. But, it's not impeding anybody driving by. It's not impeding my neighbors from sleeping. It's not doing any of those things because it's not shining in their lights excessively. Like, let's look at this holistically, right? It's not just excessive glare. It would be excessive glare and it would be, these are all factors to consider when you're looking at something.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Brian?
I go in a different direction on some things. Select board makes make the sole discretion on deciding if somebody,
Or their designate.
or the designee, if somebody was in violation of this. Is there, and there's a lot of things that people have to do. So if a neighbor complains against the neighbor, they have to make sure that they use the calibrated thing right, and the guy knew what he was doing, or gal knew what they were doing. And What if they want to appeal it? There's nothing in here to appeal it because it is subjective.
There isn't.
There's a lot of pieces in there.
So I thought about that, actually. That's a great question. I was going to put in something that the sign committee has, which you can appeal a decision to the select board if your sign has been voted down. In my years of knowing and years of talking to my colleagues, that has only happened once, that something had to be appealed. There's nothing in here right now that covers that because I didn't really think that it was something that was needed. But there are other examples of it in our subcommittees. The sign committee, like the sign committee.
Yeah, but you can't appeal it. You can't appeal a select board decision to the select board.
Right.
So
But if it was a designee, and then it could be appealed. Like it all depends on how the select board wants to handle
right,
it.
so that would be a thing. Like who would do it?
The appeal?
Well, the designee. Who's the designee?
Well, that's up to the select board who they want to.
I mean, if the select board maybe that's a good appeal for them, but then that should be specific that somebody should be the designee before it starts. Like, I don't know if it'd be like building inspector or something, or I don't know. But
I don't want to put that in here because you never know what's going to happen with employment in our building department. And so it could be, there's a bunch of inspectors we have over there. It could be anybody that the select board or the town administrator thinks can do this job.
Mm-hmm. But it's not going to be, so I'm kind of, if it's not, it doesn't have to be a designee. Like theoretically, they could just say, go out there and check this, and somebody could come back to the select board and say, violation, right? And the select board says, the select board.
It would have to be us. It would have to be a member of the select board.
Right.
Sorry, who?
Who?
Sorry,
Yeah.
the select board or their designee. So it can't just be.
Right.
It can't just be like, us going and checking it.
But if it's select board, who do they appeal to? The select board comes up and says, we checked this, it's not right. We appointed this guy to do it, and you're in violation. They're the ones that say, the select board is the one that says you're in violation, according to this. Who do
Or
they
their
appeal to?
designee. There is no appeal in this. There's no appeal.
Right, okay.
Because again, in the 10 years that people have been talking about the sign committee and their appeals, it's happened once.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically around a lighted sign.
Right. Okay.
I guess the property owner could say, please reconsider. It all goes to the select board. And the select board can say yes or no, because they make the ultimate call. But there's no procedure in here for a formal appeal.
There's nothing.
Next question, grandfathering. Does it grandfather what we have, or this is a whole new thing?
Nope, there's no grandfathering.
No grandfathering.
And in fact, the interesting part of that is that even if it was to be, go through the planning board and be a zoning bylaw, there's actually case law that the Attorney General's office does not think that facade lighting is part of something that should be grandfathered in. So we did find that with the previous town attorney.
Okay.
So there would be no grandfathering in there either.
Yep. And I think it said something in the shielding of fixtures, which I think is a good thing. I mean, I think there's some good stuff in here. I'm not, I think it's not a bad thing to have, but no, I don't think all fixtures had to be shielded, but wouldn't you want all fixtures shielded? I don't think if I missed that, but.
Yes,
We'll make a note of it.
yeah, I guess it would depend, mainly because if you say all is shielded, there's no grandfathering in there. So I would be in
My
violation.
porch light?
I would be in
Right,
violation
me.
immediately because I have spotlights at the back of my house.
Right,
Yeah, me too.
same.
The other thing to keep in mind, as was talked about, these are soon to be nuisance, so they'd be on on all night. So if you leave them on all night, all the time, most people for those type of spotlights don't turn them on all the time, right? They'll turn on either on a motion sensor or they turn them on when they get home, go out to the backyard, shut it off when they come back in. So that's where the usage of this, has to be encountered. But the question for fully shielding everything all the way through, I would say you don't want to do that because it would kind of discourage everything all the way.
Okay. Another question I had was since we're mixing, we're changing zoning, we have mixed use zoning, or we're going to get it. But we have mostly with neighborhoods with some commercial around it. Why would commercial, is it right that well, this is going to get changed anyways, but for houses, it's 2,000 lumens, it says, but commercial is 4,000. So a commercial building could be beside a house and be allowed double the light than a house beside a house could. It doesn't seem fair.
Well, depends. So you go back to the measurement portion of it, right? If they put a light that's that intense that, again, pushes more than half foot candle over the property boundary, they'd have to change that light.
Right.
I think the reason that the value is higher is they might have larger area lighting, like parking lots or something like that, that they'd have to do from the edge of their building. So that may be why it's there. And that's where the whole thing goes back of the measurement portion of it, whatever lights they put in, if there's like they measure it, and then if there's a differential in that measurement, that would be the trigger for a violation.
And most businesses aren't open 24 hours in a residential area. Like 7-Eleven shuts down at, I think, 9 o'clock by my house.
Mm-hmm. But they might keep their lights on for theft issues, crime.
They do not.
They do not?
Not those big spotlight ones.
No.
Those are only when they're in operating hours, and mainly because if somebody slipped and fell on their property, then you'd have an injury,
Oh, right.
claim.
Okay, that's all I have. Thanks.
Oh, beauty.
Oh, thank you. I bring a question back to the select board having the ability and appropriately appointing a designee to investigate this complaint of light trespass. So I am questioning who they would choose, because as the wording stands now, they could have multiple choices that aren't fully explained to us as to do this. If Sean, I guess it's a dual question to both guests. In order to measure light trespass, I guess you would have to have darkness to do so. Is it a full moon, a waning moon? That would create differential in how dark the sky is to begin with and what kind of light we get from that moon. And who this designee would be. You'd have to go out at full nighttime, when the sun has gone down and there's no ambient light from the sunset. And now you incur the moonlight. But who could be chosen to be a designee to do this? It seems to me they could pick someone from any department, or because it's nighttime and our employees are not on the payroll except for our police department, our fire department, DPW during storms, etc., do work outside of daytime hours. So where would we find these designees to go out and do this measurement? And it's up to the select board to choose. That doesn't seem to me to add clarification on how it would be chosen.
Thank you, Judy.
So-
Ms. Brown.
Yeah,
To both, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, just to touch on that. So I would assume, as Julia talked about earlier, there'll be some procedure on how these measurements are going to be performed, right? Again, the device that's used, you push a button, it locks in the value. That's the measurement. So there's not much more than just pushing a button and setting it at the property boundaries. So I think when a procedure is written, for example, if it's 3 points, 5 points along the property boundary, you click a button 3 to 5 times, you record those values, and it tells you. In regards to moonlight and stuff like that, again, you would do a differential. You would take those 5 points, you would shut the light off, take another 5 points, see if the differential between them is greater than half a foot candle, if that's the value that's chosen. And then based on that, if it's greater than half a foot candle, you'd be in violation. So
So I guess that goes to the question of, that was brought up by one of our members about an appeal process. I think any time that someone is fined for a violation of anything, there is always an appeal process. So if you can't appeal the select board, you can't go to the select board to adjudicate an appeal because they themselves decided at 11 o'clock at night that they were going to get in their car and go out and check this out. Who would their designee be? And how exactly will that process be set up as you see it, Ms. Bradley?
So the select board has the authority to instruct the town administrator to fulfill the laws of the town as they see fit. Whomever would be working that day could be assigned a case, and that person would go out and take care of it at the evening time. So it would be up to whomever was working that day or whoever caught the case, the complaint that would be assigned to it. But I don't think that it's that. I don't think that this is a hard process. The select board all the time makes decisions, and it has people, we defer a lot to the town administrator for their guidance and judgment on how to do this. And so there are staff in this town that do things that many of us don't even know about at all hours of the day. So I think, this is not something that's going to be on a daily basis. I think that, again, might be naive here, but I'm thinking that this is probably only going to be maybe at tops 10 times that there's a case brought, in the first year or so. I just living here and driving around, you can see that people are not in just vagrant violation of this. So I don't see it as a big issue. And as I said, the staff in our town do things at all hours of the day and night at the town administrator's authority.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay.
I guess.
Yeah, Jay.
Regarding the question of appeals, I'm looking at some of the bylaws right now, and like alcoholic beverages, I don't think the one on the website reflects what we passed at town meeting a month or two ago, but it's the old law, but it says if you violate the alcoholic beverage, you can be fined between $25 and $100. And I see nothing about appeal. So that's a current law that doesn't say anything about appeals. I don't know when the rubber hits the road, I don't know if they can take the town to court and say, I was not drinking a beer. I mean,
Yeah, I don't.
well, I don't know. Maybe they do have that right. I actually sort of hope they do. Or I don't know. What do I know? But the consumption of alcohol beverages doesn't have any appeals. And then the bylaws on blasting. Mr. Chair, who's on the bylaw committee, these bylaws on blasting are fascinating.
Aren't they fascinating?
And
Music blasting?
like explosions, I think,
Fracking.
as determined by the committee on blasting. I didn't know our town had a committee on blasting.
Well, I know who should be the chair of that committee.
You don't want to put anything explosive in my hands. But it has a penalty of $200 for each offense. I don't see anything about appeals, so I don't know what's right or wrong, but it seems like putting in punishments.
Who oversees it, though?
The Committee on Blasting? The Committee on Blasting. Oh, sorry, consisting of the fire chief, town engineer, and building commissioner. So those three.
So if they said somebody didn't blast correctly,
Wow.
And,
Warrant committee has changed a lot since I've
so who would they appeal to? If somebody said that I did do something right, would there be there's no appeal process for that?
It doesn't say. I don't know.
So they just
Like
find,
state law governs, or
that's it.
But whatever the answer is, maybe state law governs, maybe there's no appeal, maybe whatever. Whatever the answer is for blasting and alcoholic beverages, it would be the same answer for this. So I don't know what the answer is, but I know it to me that tells me it's not a deal breaker that this is not written in here. It's not, oh, this means we can't have this in a bylaw. That's what it seems to me.
Mm.
Whether we want it or something is a different question.
We can discuss this, but is there anything more, Sean, from you in terms, does anybody have any questions for Sean?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
It'd be
please,
great.
I'm not looking to shut her off, Jay.
it would be great if we could
We're discussing
have
this.
final language tonight. I don't know if that's possible or impossible. It'd be great if we could have final language tonight. So you said you might revise section 5. Can you give us wording? Can we take a 10-minute break and then you can give us wording? Is that possible? You're looking like the headlights are coming at you.
Yeah, it's been a long day.
Okay.
But we would just change it probably, change it to, instead of lumen levels that are too bright.
Well, yeah, I mean, what I would do is look at the dark sky kind of language that's there. Maybe you wanted language tonight, if you wanted to take a 10-minute break and let me kind of dive into it, I could probably propose something. But I mean, if it would help, get it along, sure. Like I said, if
Mr.
not,
Chair, or we could meet tomorrow.
We can certainly meet
Can you
tomorrow.
send that?
This is why I put it on the schedule for tomorrow. Okay, so I know we don't want to.
My opinion, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Please, remember, we're getting into discussion now. We have,
When you're at a town meeting and you get the language on that day or a half hour before they're going to vote on it, it's really difficult to really delve into it, as you can imagine. And we do an incomplete job, and then I think it's a disservice to the town. It's my opinion. So
If you
I
were
think
to do a green sheet now, though, it would be out on the first night of town meeting. And this
Yeah.
is last, so it won't come up for at least 2 days. So people will have
Maybe a week.
maybe a week. So people will have all that time to review it.
if we had something today or tomorrow, if we're going to meet tomorrow, or something, so we could
Right.
Okay, so we're in agreement. Not doing it on
So committee, this is the thing. We can meet tomorrow. I know we've been meeting a lot, but we have speakers here to speak, and then we can have like a full discussion tomorrow and maybe put forward some amendment language to suggest a town meeting if that's what we want to do. What's my feeling of the committee? Like I said, we have people here to speak.
I think my opinion is I think there's a lot of changes that need to be. I don't really want to meet tomorrow, but I think we might have to, because there's a lot of changes I think that have to be made. Like I think things like making note of the equipment that you need, property line, the lumens, because I don't know what that's about, when you do it. We talked about penalties. I guess it's going to be no appeal, but the grandfathering is not an issue.
I think there's so little urgency to this that I would prefer to see it fully baked in the next warrant, not the current one.
Thank you.
There's one in June, right?
Yeah, that won't be on the agenda.
Erin, you made the comment that you had the public hearing.
We did.
And there were some comments, but they are not in this current.
They're in the version that you got mailed to you today.
Okay.
And the reason why is because the select board did not have, the chair was going out of town.
Yep.
We did not have the timing to take a look at that, to print it in the warrant. So what's printed in the warrant is what was heard
The
at the
original.
public hearing. And at the public hearing, again, we had no opposition. We had multiple emails. I think we had, almost 30 emails from town members saying that they wanted the bylaw. There was no changes. Nobody, in fact, I'm interested that you guys are going, and I'm just nobody came from the warrant committee to our public hearing to offer
I
suggestions.
had a conflict.
I'm sure, right, but I'm
Because
just
I would
saying.
have come.
I
think we were.
You
no,
are at everything.
I think we were meeting. I think we had a meeting.
The night that the select board had a meeting?
Yes, I think we had a meeting that night because I was like, we can't go.
Oh.
I think that's what it was.
And I didn't get any emails, except for from Jay, previously about questions or concerns.
Oh, because I wanted to go to the meeting.
Well, I'm just saying, we had the meeting, there was no opposition, there was no.
But the changes that people had or the comments are in this one.
Are in the one that you were emailed today, specifically around holiday lights, specifically around, the intent and the purpose was just to try and frame it better because people were worried about it being too broad. Those don't have to be in there. If they're out of scope, that's fine with me. Under enforcement, we put in a section that says that if the property owner fixes it before the select board or their designee makes a decision, that it would just be dismissed, so that we wouldn't have to, like if it's pointed the wrong way and they fix it or whatever. And then there's all the section about the outdoor stuff. In there, you've got your flags, you've got your holiday lights, and we've got the exemptions. So part of the exemptions that needed to be in there is that, if somebody gets upset that National Grid is doing work in the middle of the night and they've got spotlights going, that is actually emergency work that has to happen. So these are in there just so that we don't get frivolous. Again, we're trying to stop the frivolousness. And so that's why those are in there. The other thing that was brought up was the fact that there was concern that people would file multiple complaints. In fact, it was even brought up that people would file multiple complaints on multiple light bulbs. So that in the violation section, you'll see that there's a thing that says basically that you can only do it once. And once it's found compliant, like it's compliant unless a new lighting is installed. So those were some of the changes that were made to address the concerns that came up from a member of the former select board.
Okay.
But we had the only suggestions we had, Milton Academy sent some kids that talked to us to make sure, it was pretty awesome, to the civil engagement, to talk about how important this was and how much it is impacting their lives too, as young folks. And, we know a lot about global warming now. So there's some, I don't remember specifically what I put in for them, but there was something in here. It might've been around a definition. Oh, glare. They want a glare defined. So that's in the new one.
Judy has her hand up.
It only says excessive glare.
Nope, in the new, under definitions.
Oh, in definition.
Yep, sorry. So
Yeah, you want to go ahead and turn something on?
Hello?
What?
Hello? Are you talking to me, Mr. Chair?
No?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Please continue, or whomever was speaking.
Thank you so much, Mr.
I think that was me, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So it's.
Do you have my hand up whenever anyone else is done?
So
Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure Lori caught it. So that's what was changed and that's what's in there. And again, it was mainly because there was just a timing issue with the printing of the warrant and not being able to come back together because of vacations.
Okay, I'm good.
Good. Judy.
Yes, my question goes to Ms. Bradley. Because there are fines, monetary, if there is found to be a violation, can you explain how these fines will be processed in terms of making a, well, I guess,
Yep. So Judy, that's
demand of the violator?
Yep.
And where will the money go when you collect this?
Yep. So it's all in the penalty section. It's actually, that was put in by town council. It's a pretty standard section. It's in all penalties of collection of money for any violation of bylaws.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I missed that, sorry.
Okay, does anybody have any further questions for Ms. Bradley or Mr. O'Rourke as it pertains to any of these two articles? The old one in the warrants, we'll call it the old, or the new. But the old is really still good.
I know.
Yeah, so
Sorry about that.
we have.
It was the printing of it.
It's fine. So I'm gonna ask one time committee, if you have a question now, now's the time. This is our chance. Two people here in the room. I don't see any other hands raised. Is there anything else that you'd like to add or you think we need to know that maybe you didn't mention or?
I think that we have to think about the future of the town and not just today. I think that there's going to be a lot of changes with the zoning, whether or not however that ends up looking, and developments that are happening. You look at East Milton and that big development that's coming there. This is not just to be a stagnant thing. This is supposed to be something that continues to grow as our town grows, but we got to start somewhere. You notice that the other light trespass or the whole dark sky piece is not even in this warrant, right? Last time we had 2, but there was so much, I don't want to say fear, but there was just so much of people not understanding about dark skies and what the value it is to us as humans, right? And so I think as we continue to expand and grow, just because we're going to as a town, it's something that we might want to think of is really putting in some work around, defining dark skies and what that means to us as a town. Because this is just a fix-it piece. This is how we see our town. And maybe that's something that the planning board takes up. Maybe it's something that another committee takes up, Sustainable Milton or our Climate Action Committee. But I really hope that the Warrant Committee would think of this not just as today's issue, that this is something that I personally and the people that I've spoken with really want to put forward to try and make sure that there's protections for those that are really being impacted. There was actually, I know everybody thinks, this is going to be bad, but there's actually somebody over in Wolcott Woods who came and testified. And he said there's nobody living in that home, and there's an outdoor light that shines into their space 24/7. And they have tried, and there's just no mechanism right now. And that's not how we want to live in a town, and that's not how we want to try and help each other. So as you consider this, don't think of this as a stick. Think of it more as a way that we can have a carrot to try and encourage change without actually having penalties.
I appreciate that explanation for us, Ms. Bradley.
Thank you.
That's very helpful, and it's really I'm very happy to hear that, because I think it's right. I mean, the future's unknown, right?
Right.
And this is a big issue, and we could really expand. And
Right. It could go in 100 different directions. And I really think that us defining I talked to Cheryl Tagayas, who's been on the planning board for 12 years now. And this is something that she has been wanting to do for 12 years. And she said that it has been, nobody really wants to take on the fact of dark sky and what it does to the rhythm of our environment, the rhythm of our animal neighbors, even of butterflies and bees. Like, all of the lighting that's happening is really impacting a lot of chains here. And so it's something that we could look at as a town and really make a mark and set some examples for other towns.
Ron,
Just one quick question.
Sure.
So we talked about some potential changes to paragraph 5.
Yes.
Do you want us to wait for a proposal, or are you looking to us to propose that ourselves? I don't think, I wouldn't feel comfortable for us to propose language. And you're volunteering here, Sean, but
Sean's the best.
I think if you want us to vote on it, I think I would need to see what that proposal is, because we probably can't come up with.
I mentioned that on town floor. I love looking at these and talking about them as a citizen, but like in terms of the structure and fixing them, even as being an attorney, I'm kind of nervous.
Yeah.
Yep.
And of course, we just have a deadline, as you know, just for the printing, green sheets, revisions. If you were able to help us, could you help us by tomorrow evening?
Yeah.
Sean, you're just like, you're in
No, it's
every
fine.
hand.
No, I mean, honestly, I've been watching all the work you guys have been doing since February. It's almost like every night you guys have been meeting. You guys are going to June. So whatever I can do to kind of help the process for you guys to just kind of check this one off, move on, get it to town meeting. Yeah.
Because I'm getting the feeling, I don't know, but like the members of the committee are favorable to this. And I think that if we were able to see something like in writing that we can talk about and then maybe vote on, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, like I was saying, it's not revising the entirety of the text. It's just adding that one portion on there for measurement. I can look at some of the other ones that are there and craft something to replace that section 5 or a portion of that section 5.
Does that sound good, everybody?
And I'm sending him the red line version right now as we speak.
Thank you.
Yep.
I have another question about mentioning Cheryl that reminded me of that. Didn't you and Arthur go to
We did.
the planning board? And she was at the time very favorable of it being a zoning.
She was, as was the chair, Meredith Hall, at the time.
And
it just, I think that they are busy.
oh, you think?
So I think that, there was just something that wasn't on their front burner.
Right.
And I can tell you that at the time, the chair was very, she really liked it, as did Member Tagayas.
Yeah.
So it just kind of, I don't know. That would be a question for the planning board, but again, they're busy,
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
It's just, this makes it, as a select board, I was gonna say we again, the select board is able to submit these to town meeting.
Oh, yeah,
So
correct.
it's not in violation of any law.
No, I
it's
know
just-
that. Yeah.
Okay, I just don't want
Oh,
anybody to
no,
think that we're trying
not
to
at all.
work around.
Nope, not at all.
Okay, thank you.
Not at all.
Yeah, no, it was just the whole, we're used to planning board and we're used to the meetings and just that long grinding process.
Yes.
And, I think that's what we envisioned with something like this. As I said, it kind of reaches every corner of the town.
It does.
Everybody. So I think that's what our hesitancy, Ms. Bradley, on the special town meeting was really
Absolutely.
about that. And I think you understood that. I hope you did.
Oh, 100%. And we had our hearing and we did everything by the book. And I applaud all the people that came to the hearing and spoke to us. And I'm sorry it was the same night as you guys. I had no idea, Lori. And you are at everything.
I know.
So I'm surprised you weren't there.
Just a second.
So thank you. And if you have any questions, I'm home tomorrow working on a final. So feel free to call or anything.
Well, I might shoot you an email if something comes up. And Sean, I really appreciate it. I think we are.
I have a question for Miss Bradley before
Sure.
she breaks free,
Sure, Judy.
if I could. When you were speaking about the public comments, Miss Bradley, you mentioned a concerned citizen in Walcott Woods, which we should know is governed by a homeowners association. So I wonder
I still have to follow.
why lighting isn't addressed in their homeowners CC&Rs.
So that homeowner, I don't know what the homeowner did not talk about the process that the homeowner has undergone. But I will say this, anybody that is resident of the town has to follow town bylaws. We have to follow state laws and federal laws as well. So that is just, it doesn't matter if you're in an HOA or a condominium or an apartment, you have to follow the rules of the town, even if you don't
But the
know them.
CC&Rs of any condominium units, Walcott Woods, for example, they must, and they have no choice, but to follow town and state and federal laws in creating their CC&Rs. So, it's basically violations are taken carefully through the HOA CC&Rs because they cannot be out of sync with other laws. So I am very curious about that, and it's not going to, it's not going to influence my decision on this, but I was curious. That's all. Thank you.
And there's probably a clause in there that says that, any new bylaws or guidelines or state regulations, state laws, that's just a catch-all because we change laws all the time in the state. That's what legislators do. So my guess is that there's a catch-all in there. And Judy, you can go back and watch the hearing and figure out exactly who that gentleman is.
Oh, no, I'm not playing I Spy, but
It was a public hearing. It's not I Spy.
I get it. I just don't have time to track it down, but in general, again, CC&Rs cannot be in any violations of municipal laws, state laws, federal laws. So thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Okay. Well, I think we've taken this for a ride.
We have.
And again, I appreciate you, and I appreciate you, Sean, as well, coming down here and helping us. And it was a great help.
Thank you. I really appreciate your time and all your hard work. The warrant committee is a lot of work, and obviously even more so these days. So
What do you like, select board or warrant committee?
I would.
I don't want you to answer that.
I'm on town meeting now. I like that.
Well, you're gonna have more free time now. So thank you again for your service
Thank you
and
so much.
what you've done for the town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You too, Sean. And Sean, you can email.
I'll email that over.
You have my email, right?
Yeah.
Town email.
Yep.
And Karen.
Yep.
You're the best. Thank
No
you.
problem.
Thanks. Thank you both for your help in this.
Thanks.
Okay, so I think we're going to probably like to address this and the language changes tomorrow. And we'll see what Sean has for us. I will forward that out. I will be very on top of my email game tomorrow and get this to everybody as soon as possible. But does anybody have anything you want to talk about? Just about this?
Go ahead.
Andrew raised the question of sort of why do we need to rush? We also might want to look at the perspective of why not. I mean, there's been a public hearing. The public spoke. I listened to it. I'll be honest. I started listening to it today. I didn't get all the way through it, but there was a lot of passion for this. And if we could ironclad 100% guarantee this would come up in June and be passed, that might be one thing, but I don't think we can guarantee that. So I would turn around the why rush and say, why not do this if we think it is prudent?
Brian, Lori?
So I think, why rush? I'm with Andrew on this. I actually do think it's a good idea to have this law. I don't think it's a bad thing, but I don't think it's right. And I think there's a lot of details that keep coming up. Every time, this is the fourth iteration, right? And fourth iteration, and every time we talk about it, we have more and more questions and comments. And it's still not right. And, you have a town meeting next Monday. Why are we rushing it? There's another town meeting a month later, right? Mm-hmm. Why not put it off for a month? What's the rush?
No, that's
get it right, because you're going to have penalties on this. You have penalties on this. 1 month isn't going to make much of a difference. So why not just wait and do it right? Because you know how hard it is to change these things after the fact. It's not that simple. And I would just rather get it right the first time.
I know I spoke. Can I?
Yeah, if you can
rephrase?
respond and then Ron.
Okay, maybe if I rephrase
And
it.
Lori.
I'll rephrase it. If we want to delay, I think we should present a really good reason to town meeting why we're delaying. Something more concrete than, well, let's not rush. Something really that we can get our hands in. We, have this opinion and this opinion and this opinion, and here's our plan for getting it done by June, and here's why we think you should delay to June town meeting, rather than, well, let's just take a month. And I'm not accusing of anybody being. I'm just saying, let's have a really well laid out reason if we want to delay.
I want to go now.
Ron, the best.
Sorry. So I think, listen, I said to Erin at town meeting, let's get it done. Let's do it, right? So they had the public hearing. Today at 11 o'clock, the email came in. Right? So everybody's working. How do we do this? We have questions, and we do take this seriously. I take it seriously, and I want to do it right. And so this 5 pages didn't have a public hearing. So it's substantially different, maybe better, but shouldn't it have a public hearing? Because it's now very different than what it was when it was a public hearing of 2 pages. And this, it seems out of scope. So it's either whatever's in the warrant. I would want an opinion, and I emailed Tom about this. I would want an opinion from town council and the moderator if this is out of scope. Or we just comment on what's in the warrant, because that's in the warrant, and make a recommendation on the warrant, one in the warrant. And maybe that is send it back again. Oh my gosh, because we didn't get any updates. It's right here. And I understand schedules but like we have to deal with that too. How many times have we been like bombarded with things at the 11th hour? We continue to allow whatever reasons to disrupt a process that is set in place, and we don't follow it. And that is does not seem right to me. So that's just my 2 cents. So I agree with Andrew.
Ron, Judy, Peter.
And I'm fully in support of it.
I agree with you. I think the changes that Sean will have to make are material to me. Because I'm like, everything else is blah, blah, blah. And then that's the part that we're going to hold people to. I'm like, I don't even know what that language looks like. So I don't feel comfortable. Even after we see it tomorrow, I agree. People they didn't present that to the town. And I believe Sean's giving good standards, but who knows? Maybe there's some other experts that's like, there's other ways you can do this. I just don't think, I agree with you. We should pass laws that are ready, or we should vote on laws that are ready. I feel like, I just don't think it's ready. I think I'm sure that they're both busy. What I worry about is if we send it back to the select board, they can decide, do they bring Miss Bradley in to work on this, or do they work on it? I don't know. They
would work on it, I would assume. Or I guess, Ms. Bradley could work on it and work on it.
That would be their problem.
We have all the options.
I mean, they can decide if it's close enough.
Yeah. I mean, I think that would be, and it's a new select board.
I guess that's the only reason there could be some thought to, let's get this over to the line, because maybe the select board is going to say, not a priority for us next month. But I would leave that to the select board to decide, because
I agree with Jay though, we have to really articulate our issues with it. I don't want to go into town meeting and say, send it back again. And I know, and they're going to look at it and they're going to say, hey, it's 5 pages now,
Out of scope.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is it out of scope? Right. It's not out of scope, and that's town council and our new moderator. And I know that's a concern of the town administrator, that it is out of scope because of the changes.
I assume, Tom, they'll need to see this final version.
They need to
because
see
that's not like just grammar checks. No. That is like that's the real test. And I would think town council should look at that. And that's what's,
think about the work we've done on the planning articles, right? Those have been kind of small surface changes. And then they go back and they're voted on, and then we take them. So I want to get through every speaker. Judy, and then Peter.
Thank you. I'm in agreement with just about everyone that spoke here. Well, everyone, committee person. I agree with Jay that this can't be kicked down the road forever. It is a process in so many similar towns to ours. Wellesley was brought up tonight by one of our presenters. So it's not an anomaly to have such a bylaw in this town. And I agree with Lori that there are so many changes now that kind of changes the whole article. For it to be questionable enough to bring forth to town meeting for voting. And I agree with, I'm sorry. I don't think I got enough sleep last night.
Ron or Brian?
Brian, that the importance of getting, if you're going to do something, do it right. And this is, again, many towns similar to ours. I had a list of 63, and I only went through 12, to be honest with you, because the minute I saw it was zoning versus general bylaw, I sort of stopped my search, because then I was able to search better to find towns that went general instead of through their planning board zoning. So I'm in with being similar to the towns surrounding us that are similar to ours, and maybe not quite so similar. However, we've looked at this, as has been mentioned, several times. We seem to come up with concerns every time we look at it that are very valid concerns. And I think there's an appetite for us to have such a bylaw about lighting but then we have a commitment, it seems, to have it be a good one, really good. And although changes can always be made, to minimize the amount of changes that would need to be made to get it really working right. So those are my thoughts, and thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Peter?
Can you hear me?
Perfect.
Great. I'm in agreement with all of my colleagues regarding holding off on this. I think this, as Ms. Bradley stated, maybe there's 10 people who might be offering a complaint to the select board in a year. Maybe that's a big number. I think that was her outside number. I think, as was stated by one of my colleagues, everybody in the town will come under these rules. Not 10 people, but everybody. I think we need to get it right. And I think that it's not in its best form right now. And I would agree that we need to get it to that point before agreeing, at least from my perspective, and at least get it there before deciding that it needs to go back to the town. Thank you.
Good, thank you, Peter. Anyone else?
Yeah.
So Jay,
Speak again?
finish the if you could.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to say sort of what I said the second time. For me, it's less a yes question or a no question. It's a why are we making a decision? So if we do decide that we want it to be in June, we've really got to spell out to the town meeting why, and maybe even spell out a roadmap. Town meeting, not only are we saying send it back, we're saying X, Y, and Z done on these dates will lead to success in June. And if those aren't done on those dates, they won't lead to success in June. And I guess the other thing I'd like to say is that the changes, well, maybe I'm just shouting into the wind. When I compare this 5-page document to the 2-page document, I don't think the changes are that great. I mean, the purpose section is longer. To me, that doesn't mean a whole lot. It went from being the select board to select board or its designee. That doesn't affect me a lot, but okay, maybe that's a big deal. They added exceptions, which to me, by definition, if you're adding exceptions, you're not expanding the scope, you're restricting the scope. The main thing is the enforcement section is longer and different. And that's the only one that, that's the biggest one. So to me, it's not obvious if it's out of scope, it's a question, but I don't know. I guess I keep coming back to it. I hear my fellow members saying, yes, I think we should do X. And I'd rather say, instead of saying we should do X or we should do Y, let's say we should do X, and here's why we do X, and here's maybe the plan going forward, town meeting. We are your wise advisors, town meeting, and here's the path to success. Is that out of our scope?
Well, I guess, and I think I'm going to answer something that I think I was thinking you were going to go down a path, so I was going to answer something else. But I think the intent, there's 5 different, these are things that that have been added. The purpose gets more limiting. It's limits on people and what they can do, and it's more direct in what it's talking about. Control glare, and that's fine. Again, I'm not arguing about this at all. I think it makes sense. What I think makes sense is to be accurate about it, not to be just running with it to get it done, just to get it done. And if we wanted to get it done, like we did in May, we wanted to get it done, not May, February, for May. It was, we were not sitting on it. We got it at 11 a.m., 5 days before town meeting. That's not okay. I mean, because now we're supposed to write the bylaw. So do we want to write bylaws? We don't want to write bylaws. That's not our job to write bylaws. Happy to do it. If that was the plan, then we should have planned to write the bylaw in February when we met again. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, I think we just want to do it right. We shouldn't just be writing bylaws to get a bylaw on the books and then we'll make changes later, because we won't. What about the recording of meetings? We were going to come back to that, and look how that has evolved.
Okay.
So
it's 9:05. We are going to get language submitted to us by Sean O'Rourke tomorrow. Forward that to everybody. Let's reconvene. Okay, let's reconvene and formulate a comment as a committee, what we want to see in it and how we explain this to town meeting. I think everybody's right. Great respect for the select board. Sean O'Rourke coming down here, and yes, I want to get it done. I want to give them everything they want now without question. But there's a part of me that agrees with everybody here. So I'm going to ask the committee, can I have a quorum tomorrow?
I have a conflict.
Okay, Lori has a conflict. Am I going to have a quorum tomorrow? Brian? Call Ron.
I have a conflict, Tom.
Okay.
I'll be here. And I do know that Macy had a conflict tonight. It was made before, we got notification we were having a meeting tonight and she couldn't cancel. I'm just going to go out on a limb and assume that she would be here. But I will be here, and I will.
Jay, Tom.
Thank you.
Brian, Ron, Lori, Judy.
We only have 14 members, so we only need 7 people.
Yeah. Well, that's right, Jay.
You need 8.
Still need 8?
A quorum.
More than 50?
Okay. Am I going to have 8 people here tomorrow? Or I'm going to be calling people at 7:05. Milton Cable Access is coming to film us, and they need to know.
You said you could make it or you can't?
I do not know.
Or said no.
I'm going to be in the car.
Andrew can't make it either.
So we're not going to have 8 people?
I don't know.
Hang on, I'll make a phone call quick to a warrant committee person to see if they can commit to tomorrow.
Like, again, we're kind of rushing it. Like, we don't even have the stuff. We don't know if we can get everybody tomorrow. Why don't we just, at this point, I feel like it's, to Jay's point, maybe we should recommend that they put it off to the June and give them the steps on how to get there. Like, we're scrambling to get a quorum tomorrow. This seems like not.
This is actually like this. I've never seen anything like this before. But
I would think if we are going to do that, I would maybe drop a note to our friend here and say, if we're not going to look at it tomorrow, don't kill yourself tonight drafting language, because I feel like you told me to go off and do it, and he's like, okay, Sean's doing a lot, so.
That'd be what I recommend.
Okay, we need to draft a comment. We have to put something in the warrant. And when is that going to happen? And who's going to do it?
I'll draft it.
Yeah, I'd much rather than one person say, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, or even 2 or 3 people say, here's the steps we're going to take to guarantee it's, or.
But I'm sorry to.
We have other members that aren't hearing us ask if they are going to be here tomorrow night. So should we
It's a crapshoot, Judy, because
send out the alarm now to get a commitment from them so we know if we have a quorum? The person that I just called, which, their commitment, their phone is off. So that makes sense because of their commitment that their phone is off. But we have members that aren't here tonight that we could query if they could be here tomorrow night. It's just a thought, Mr. Chair.
Oh, I know. Thank you, Judy. If I had trust that people would be here, I would set the meeting and we would come back tomorrow and it would be quick. But it's 9:00 and we're looking to email other members to see if they're going to be here. Like,
What's our count?
So then should we, I'm sorry, I apologize. So should we, as a committee tonight, make fast and hard decisions on this before we next see each other for town meeting? Should we confirm where we're at in this process and nail it tonight then if we're concerned about tomorrow not having more time? And in which case, and we would also have to include, when we get new language from Mr. O'Rourke, how are we gonna incorporate that into tonight's decision? I'm confused. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's what we're saying, is we don't have, there's too many questions, too many variables, we don't know. We don't know anything. We don't even know, we don't know if we're gonna be able to meet tomorrow. We're probably not, it sounds like. So why we want to put it off anyways, I think.
The thing is-
the general feeling seems to be that we want to put it off anyway, so
Yeah, but
why are we rushing it?
well, here, I can't tell the select board what to do. They're the ones who make those decisions on what's on the
Yeah.
warrant. And I was told that they're looking to keep it extremely light for June, i.e. MBTA and the planning stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we can make that recommendation and select board will be like, yeah, we're not.
Well, this is a light,
So to speak.
No, I know, that's cool. So that's the thing,
Yeah.
like, I recommended, hey, the planning board, do you want to take this up? And, obviously that didn't happen and we're here now. But as the chair, I need to get a vote and a comment on a piece of paper to the town administrator.
When is it due? Oh, and it's Wednesday.
I need this by Saturday.
Well,
I'm happy to write a comment.
I'll help you.
And
What
I'm
about
happy
if
to-
we all just pick a
Judy.
member that's not here tonight and commit to convince them to at least be on Zoom tomorrow night to make the quorum, if they can't get in their car and drive down?
What are you going to discuss tomorrow night? Taking into account Sean's whatever, and we're going to write a bylaw, we're going to write the bylaw tomorrow night? Is that what you're recommending? Judy?
I think she's just trying to get a quorum.
Oh, but the whole point of the quorum
Oh,
is
yes,
to write
Lori,
the-
I
is to
was,
write the bylaw?
Oh.
I mean, are we trying, I guess, do we need to take a vote as to whether or not we should send it back or write a new bylaw tomorrow
I
night?
don't think we should be writing a new bylaw.
I think we could benefit from more than one or two members of the committee to really lay out what our comment is going to be. Like, usually with our comments, one member takes it away and sends it to you, and then that's it. I think this comment could benefit from a lot more input.
I'm happy to write it and send it to you all.
I hope.
Okay, I'm saying I'd like to do it.
And you guys
as a
can meet
group.
tomorrow night, and then you can, whoever, well,
need
but
to
only if you have a
vote.
quorum.
We need to vote.
So should we vote now?
I think we should just vote now
I agree. Yeah.
because this is just not. You need to,
If we can't get a quorum tomorrow, we will have no vote. That's
exactly.
the ulterior. I would take the vote now.
And then-
We have 9 people.
And then we'll hear Nick's heads explode
You
tomorrow.
want a
morning.
motion? You want a motion?
And to Jay's point, and I think I want to clarify this before we take a vote. I don't want to see the whole issue of lighting just die on the vine. And not be brought up for another 5 years or something, or it takes 5 years to get, my opinion is we don't really want to see that happen. We're not an outlier with this type of bylaw. We would be compatible with so many of our like similar towns. We don't want it to die on the vine, yet we have a consensus, it seems, that we wish to see it be the best it can be. And that's not unreasonable. So we have two things going to make sure, it doesn't just disappear from view in people's minds. And we also have an obligation to, which has been a mantra on this committee, to have it be the best that it can be at this time. And so we have two objectives, and thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
I just have one comment on that.
Sure.
I mean, I think we all have roles. If we vote to send it back and the select board doesn't pick it up, the select board is elected. And if they deprioritize this, I think as a warrant committee, our job is to wait for them to propose. And they would make a call that this is not as important, I guess. We can't force them to do it. To your point, we can't tell the select board, you have to bring this back in June. So.
This new select board may, but they may not.
Right, it's their call, right? So.
Yeah, but I'm sure like MBTA is going to be the issue until June. Okay, well, you know what I mean? And I'm sure everybody will be focusing on that. There's not going to be time for this. Jay, you have any other thoughts on this?
I guess just when it comes to writing the comment, like if Lori and I have very different opinions, different, not even different opinions, different ideas for how it might go. It's hard to do that over email. It's easier to do it in person. So maybe some of us could.
Well, maybe we can have a call tomorrow and talk through it. I mean, I'm just trying to facilitate.
Yeah. Okay.
So to get it done, because, I'm just.
I agree with Jay, and I think this could be an opinion with a lot of stuff in it. Mm-hmm. And here it is, town meeting. Here it is.
Yeah.
And it's the 11th hour, but this is the best we could do. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Is that fair? Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I don't know the motion. I make a motion that we recommend to put off the lighting bylaw, voting on the lighting bylaw until the June town meeting. So we can fully vet it. Is that good?
Well, we can't do that. Because
We can't tell
we can't move it.
the select board when to put what
We
meeting
can send
to.
it back.
We can send it back to them and say, you can bring it back in June. The warrant committee
you want.
will be ready for you, or you can bring it back in the fall. But it would be a motion just to send it back to the board.
You can't tell them we recommend it for June?
We could say that in the comment.
Yeah, okay.
We could say that, we could say whatever we want in the comment.
All right.
And we can make all sorts of, but
Yeah, I recommend that I make a motion to recommend that the warrant committee send back the lighting bylaw.
A second.
As proposed.
seconded by Ron. Karen,
Can I make the friendly amendment that we're recommending town meeting send it back?
Yeah, I was just going to read it. Yeah.
Okay.
So you're going to move that the committee vote to recommend vote to recommend town meeting vote to send it back to the select board for further review, correct? Ron seconded it. In your comment, you're going to encourage them to.
That sounds fine.
You good, Brian?
Yep, I'm good.
Good. Okay, members
Thank you.
online, thank you for your patience.
We haven't voted.
No, we haven't. Okay. Karen, can you call the voting roll?
Steve,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes, sorry, couldn't unmute.
Peter,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Judy,
Yes?
Judy,
Yes? Oh, I'm unmuted. Yes? Hello?
You said yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I heard her
The
outside.
motion carries.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry. Tom, I'm sorry.
yes.
Unanimous.
Still carries.
It's going to abstain.
Sorry about that.
On the record.
Okay, thank you, Warrant Committee. This was a, one would not think this would be a difficult one. It seems to, a lot of people feel very strongly about it. I get it. Okay, in this iteration here, I will send an email to Sean this evening, probably late, but I'll send one to him. I'm going to CC the comment writers, and I'm asking Jay Funley, Lori Conley, and Ron Sia. And Brian.
If you want, sure.
Sure, I'm not looking to leave anybody out, but when you get too many cooks, but if the four of you want to just figure this out, and I think you all know in your minds what we need to say at a town meeting. But I will CC the four of you to Mr. O'Rourke.
Thanks.
Does anybody else have any questions? We have voted to send this article back to the select board. Okay, seeing no hands raised, is there a motion? Oh, actually, let me stop everybody. Town meeting, the annual, starts on Monday. We are going to meet at 6:30 in the teacher's lounge in the high school. And Karen is posted for those. Karen won't be with us for the first night. I know. So I'm going to send an email out, and that's the meetings have been posted. Everything is on the agenda. Okay, in case something comes up, as we traditionally do. But I'll see everybody at 6:30 for the big one, the annual.
Great.
And thanks everybody for your time on this. I appreciate it. I know Ms. Bradley appreciates it also.
I feel badly that we're not.
I do. Like I said earlier, I'd like to have really gotten this done. And, but it is what it is. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Seconded by Brian. In favor? Aye. Aye. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you, Warrant Committee. Thank you, Milton.
Thank you.